Hi everybody, on here and coming to you with this month's video. This is going to be probably a pretty big, intense one with what I have to share this week. I'm going to be focusing on something connected to relationships, and this is really huge. Both in February and March right now, relationships have become a really central point, as have taking command of things. That's coming more in with March here, and also the whole aspect of freedom and creating freedom in our life. And there's one piece that really connects in with a lot of things that I think needs to be brought to the forefront right now, because so many times we're out there and we're wanting to help people and we want to see them succeed and we want things to be good for them, but then we fall into these really tough spaces and these really tough patterns that can not only compromise the relationship but can lead us down some paths that really lack integrity. They really lead us to not honor ourselves. They really lead us to go down lies and deceptions and misuse our power along the way. So the topic I'm looking at this month, and we are going to do a little meditation at the end, short kind of breathing into things at the end here once it's through. But the main topic I want to look at this month is connected to enabling, the patterns of enabling and being an enabler, or what it means to enable somebody through the code perspective. And this is huge because so many times when we enter into this pattern, we enter in with the best intentions. We don't enter in to cause destruction in somebody's life. We don't enter in to create issues or challenges for ourselves or them. But that is exactly what usually happens when we go into an enabling pattern. So enabling can get out of hand very, very quickly. And when we look at the code patterns of enable, when we enable somebody, what we're doing is we're trusting in providing them with what is needed, or what we think they need, or what they tell us they need. So somewhere there is a need, and there's a need that they feel has to be fulfilled, and that's usually through what they believe is something outside of themselves. And that's one of the first steps that we run into challenges, is because we're looking for something outside of ourselves. We may feel trapped in some way. We may feel challenged in some way. We may be operating out of urgency or desperation, or any numerous pieces along the way. And so instead of really getting to the internal core of things, we think something outside of ourselves. And this often comes up when people are in challenging times and they're having difficult times in their life, and our heart goes out to them. It's like, God, I don't want to see this person in this struggle, in this challenge. And so, we try to implement our wisdom. We try to share our heart with them, our love with them, through giving them things, through giving them leeways and things that we wouldn't ordinarily do in life. And so we extend them. Maybe we break our parameters a bit. Maybe we are there for them a little bit more than we would be other people in that situation. And we really hope that they're going to heal. We really hope that with our help, they're going to be able to heal, right? And we're trusting in that process as well. And what we see when we enable somebody is that we see the potential for success. And this is where some of the distortions come in, because here again, we're feeding that their success is based on something external. Well, if I give them a little bit of leeway with this, with paying me on something, then I'm going to trust that they're going to pay me and it's going to be okay. Because I see their success, they're going to be successful, so it's going to happen. Well, we're banking on something that hasn't happened yet. And when we do that, we actually create a lot of challenges because we're operating in something that isn't real. And we're not tapping into the creativity that needs to tap into. We're not coming into solution or really solving something. We're pretty much putting a band-aid on it. It's pretty much like, here you go, and, you know, pay me whenever type of thing. So this enable process starts off feeling like we're just helping, feeling like it's just a temporary thing. But this pattern cascades very quickly. And when that success doesn't come through, and when we're in this enabling spot, that success oftentimes doesn't come through, or it comes through in a small peak and then goes away, and the core issue is still there. And part of that core issue is that there's something that needs to be faced by the person that is getting enabled. There's something that they haven't dealt with from their past. So once we step into the position of enabler or enabled, now we're delving into things of our past, issues of our past that have been unresolved, where we haven't learned the lessons from them, we haven't faced them, we haven't dealt with them, we've just kind of pushed them under the rug. And a lot of times the enabler might not even know that that's what's happening. A lot of times they don't even know that they're feeding a pattern or something that hasn't been addressed. And a lot of times that issue that hasn't been addressed is rooted in self-worth. It's rooted in not feeling good enough. It's rooted in taking on a lot of pressure and a lot of responsibilities that are more than what a person can handle. It is trying to find all these different outlets to create a specific outcome instead of embracing the journey and tapping into the creativity and facing the issue of something not working. So if we don't face the issue of something not working in our lives, and then people around us start enabling us and going, oh, well, you know, you can pay me back whenever, or things like that, then we never face those feelings of maybe I'm not going to make it. We never consider the other options of needing to take a different route. We never tap into the self or the soul creativity, which needs to create from what it has. Learning that lesson of working with what you have in hand is so powerful, and it engages the soul in so many ways, and it develops this powerful relationship between the soul self and the human self in there, which is absolutely stunning and absolutely incredible and absolutely necessary as we're moving through this life, because the human self has to come and trust the soul self. And usually what happens is the ego gets so inflated in not dealing with the issues and then getting enabled, and the ego gets very inflated and thinks that, okay, well, I'm going to make it, you know, like I don't have to deal with these issues. I'm not going to deal with these issues. It gets to a point where it inhibits us, and then we're living very much in the ego. Once we start to see that little downhill slide and we've gotten other people involved and other people are becoming the enabler in something, then we start to take additional hits. Our self-worth issues rise up and we feel even more inadequate because now we've engaged somebody else in the process to enable us. And now we're feeling the burdens of not only what we didn't face in ourselves, but the detriment that we're putting other people in, whether that is taking their time, whether that is taking their money, whether that is taking their resources. So even though we might be grateful for their help, and this is where we have to really get down. And when we start to look at these enabling patterns, and what we're doing is the enabler will see the potential in somebody. They know they have that ability to be successful. They know that they can do well, and they genuinely want them to do well. And so they're coming from this place of heart. They're coming from this place of giving, but it gets tapped out and it gets drained. So what I encourage you to do in this process, if you find yourself in the enabling dynamic, and I want to give a bigger example so that everything that I'm talking about really rings home for you. I'm going to give that in a minute. But when we get into this process, what we really want to do, if we start to find ourselves in this pattern, or we see this pattern going on, we want to keep redirecting the person, not about let me give you this, let me give you that, let me give you that, or this is going to fix you, or that's going to fix you. Engage with them in the creative process. Help them find the people that can help them tap into their own gifts, that can help them get into that creative space and teach them how to work with what they have in hand in there. And oftentimes these enabling patterns start way back in our childhood. They've usually started with our parents or our siblings or a very early on relationship, but usually it's way, way back into the childhood that these pieces happen. And a lot of people do fall in one pattern or the other many times, and this is why parameters become important. And even when you love somebody, you need to stick by those parameters. And that's something I know for myself I've been thinking a lot of, because as the code journey work continues to grow and develop and progress, I have to think to myself, okay, it's one thing when I'm helping one person or two people or four people in a day, but it becomes something else when, all of a sudden you have 100 people or 200 or 2,000 people. And so this is one of those things that it's not about shutting people out. It's about having to really respect parameters and to honor the balance and to honor time for yourself and everybody else. But this whole aspect of holding everybody integrity. So what happens is oftentimes, like, we might give something to somebody when we are in these enabling patterns, and when we do that, we automatically place them in a place of debt. And somebody who already has self-worth issues, somebody who's already struggling with being good enough, things like this, they are going to feel even less worthy once they're in debt. They're going to feel even less empowered, and we're not helping them to find their freedom or to become free when we place them in a debt. Again, that can be any kind of a debt as far as a favor. So if you are going to give something to somebody and you see that potential in their success and you want to help them and you want to give them something, then make it a full-on gift. Make that decision to yourself. Okay, if you can't pay me back in X amount of time, this is going to become a gift and we're going to wipe it off the records. We're not going to hold this debt here. Or I'm just going to give this to you up front, and maybe you can pay it forward to somebody else down the line. So we have options besides engaging and enabling. We have different potentials. And what we want to do is we want to stop and think and say, you know what? Am I enabling somebody, or am I really helping them? Is this really creating freedom for them? Is this really helping them to get past their issue? Or am I just putting a Band-Aid on a wound that's open right now? So this is the story I have to share. And I checked with the person who's involved with this story and asked her if it was okay if I shared the story. And it's a very good friend of mine, very good friend of Jesse's. And she is just a sweet, sweet soul. And of course she came back and said, if this story, and we had had this huge conversation the other night about this, and that's why I thought this was such a great topic with the current code patterns right now. And she came back and she said, if this story can possibly help somebody and get them to understand this, then please share it. And, you know, she's just very, very kind that way. So I'm going to share this story because it involves somebody that she was married to for over 20 years. And this was her best friend. And to this day, she speaks very, very kindly of him. And she continues to say what a good man he was. What a good man he was. You know, what a friend he was to me. And yet, as good of a person as he was living in this really dark, dark spiral of things. And in that dark spiral, and this is the thing about enabling, is it starts off in such subtle, tiny ways, but it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So they, at one point, had more than one business going, multiple businesses, but they were in a form of construction. They were in a form of working with metal and doing various things in this business together. And for a while, she was a big part of the business, and then he kind of started pushing her out a little bit, and you know, she knew things were happening, but she didn't know what all was happening in the process. And he had some challenges in his life. He struggled with the self-worth issues in his life growing up. He had some very hard points in his childhood. And I don't want you to think just because you had a great childhood that you're exempt from these patterns, because you're not. Many people, even in great families and great situations, can have self-worth issues and challenges. So anyways, as he went on in life and they were developing this business, and of course in the construction industry, things go up and down, right? You have good years, you have rough years, and he was doing business with a lot of people that he knew, a lot of people that loved and respected him, and they saw that potential in him. They saw that he worked hard, they saw that he took care of people, they saw that he cared about his employees, they saw that he always made sure his workers were paid even if he couldn't get enough for himself, things like that. He was always trying to take care of other people. And so other people also wanted to take care of him. They also wanted to help him out in the process. So they would maybe loan him materials to use so that he could get a job done. Because if you know anything about construction, you know, you may do a job and you may be fronting out thousands of dollars for materials, and then you may not get paid on it for 3 months or 6 months down the line. So you're having to front a lot of cost, and this is where a lot of business accounts get set up along the way. And so this friend would extend favors, right? Favors to him to help him out. Well, over the years, there were a lot of people, it turned out, were helping this person out. There were people that were working without pay. There were people that were doing other things. And little by little, what happened was this person that my friend was with for so many years started having alcohol issues. And those issues actually started much younger, you know, towards the end of their connection. she started finding out that actually the alcohol issues started in before his teens, started as young as about 11 years old. And these were some things that she didn't know, even as close as she was. And this happens all the time. It's far more frequent than we think, that something that we think we know somebody and we don't. We really don't know everything about them. And as things started to took a dive along the way, and there were some challenges in their relationship along the way, and she became much less involved in the business. He kind of shut her out. He didn't want her to know everything that was happening with it on the financial end of things. And she's a master. She, could turn things around really quite easily in many ways. So people were doing him these favors. Well, what would happen is that he was trying to keep everything going, and then people weren't being honest with him. So he was getting taken advantage of. He was being left without. He wasn't getting paid on things. And that left him, of course, unable to pay other people along the way. But instead of those people coming along and saying, hey, I really care about you, I love you, you're my friend, but I need to stop giving you materials. Because not only is it a detriment to me, it's not going to help you. As much as it may feel like it's going to help you to have those materials, you need to figure out how to get creative and shift this pattern around. Because no matter how much I give you, it's not going to help. And instead of doing that, they kept working for him. They kept doing things for him. They kept providing for him. One person worked for a year without a salary for him. So if these people had walked out sooner, if they had set their parameters down sooner, he would have been forced to either accept he needed to take another direction. He would have been forced to go in and tap into his soul's creativity and to find different ways to make things happen, to find different options that were more cost effective. If they cut him off, he would have needed to allow my friend to come back into the business more and to handle things, and things could have been resolved. But he didn't. He kept drinking more and more and more along the way. And like most alcoholics, he was hiding more the drinking. He was hiding how much he was drinking. And so this whole web of lies developed in this situation. It turned out, as things went on, that he could no longer stand in his power. His freedom had been completely taken away in every shape and form, because nobody was willing to stop the enabling pattern along the way. Nobody. And my friend would always get very real with him, and she would call him out on it, and yet love him through it. She dried him out from alcohol at one point. She nursed him back from different spaces. But because of all of these things, all of those enabling patterns left so much guilt in him that he couldn't transcend. He couldn't get past what he had done to people, the detriment he had left with people, and he was living with this for years, this heavy burden of what he had put other people through, as well as his own inadequacies, as well as other issues that he was dealing with, not to mention other physical DNA issues that were in his family there. Well, in the end, and a lot of this information unfolded along the way, my friend had actually left for a period of time to be with her son, and had asked for a divorce along the way. And he wouldn't give her one. It was a very, very tough situation. It was very hard, but she was away, so she, again, for a period of about 3 years, she had no connection with the business, no idea what was going on, no clue what was going on there. She wasn't even in the area anymore. She didn't know where he was at, and that's when she found out how bad he had gotten. she did return to help him dry out and to rehabilitate him as much as she could. But in the end, it wasn't enough. He ended up drinking himself to the point of it destroying his body. And that wasn't enough. In the end, he shot himself. Yeah. This is what happens when we enable people. And it doesn't mean that everybody is going to go out and commit suicide. But people that end up in the enabling pattern often contemplate, desire, or try suicide. It's a serious issue. And nobody for a minute, all of those people who thought, oh, I'm going to help him out by not taking a paycheck. I'm going to help him out by giving some materials to him to use so that he can get through this next job. I'm going to help him out this way. I'm going to help him out that way. All of those people who were enabling him had a role to play in this. Every single one of them. We don't see that in the person that we're enabling. We don't stop to think they are headed towards suicide. They don't need my help in material goods. It's not the money that they really need. They need to change how they're working and how they're functioning in the world. They need help to come to terms with it being okay to make changes, to come to terms that they need to take a different direction, to come to terms with needing help on understanding how to turn things around. You know, we say falling is one of the most powerful experiences that we can get. And in many ways, that's true. Do we have to get there to learn the lessons? No. And certainly we could get those lessons sooner if people would let us fall in a gentler, earlier point than when things are really, really deep. And the reality of it is we can't carry somebody forever, because at some point our resources are going to get exhausted along the way, and we're going to have to say no. And it's so much better and easier to say no at the beginning and to hold those parameters at the beginning than it is when things are really, really bad. My friend was left with over $500,000 in debt, probably closer to $750,000, which she still is working through at this point. So not only did he end up taking his own life, but he left her with something. Yes, of course she's a powerful force. Yes, of course she's seeing her way through it. And she's having integrity all the way through the process. But all of these people along the way, think about it, and I don't blame them for what happened to him, because these were his choices. He chose to drink, he chose to pull the trigger. But all of them along the way also worked in a lack of integrity. They also, and I'm not saying intentionally or consciously, but they also abused their power. And he abused his power. And this is why when I stress these things in codes, I want people to get it. Because I don't want to see them going down these pathways. And it might be a little hard to get past facing some of these things and to work through them. But it's a lot better than when we let them go on and on and on. It's a lot better than standing in the enabling patterns, being the enabler, or being enabled. Nobody is doing you a favor by enabling you. And you are not doing anybody else a favor by enabling them. I really hope this story has hit home for some people. And I really hope that at this time you will take some time to reflect and review and take a look at the relationships that you keep. Take a look at if you are operating in that way with anybody. And stop it. The only way they're going to get strength is if they can tap into these creative energies of working with what they have. And know that if you're going to give something to somebody, just give it. Don't carry it out for years and years and years like these people did in his life, because it only perpetuates these lies and this mistreatment and broken relationships. And that doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve you, me, anybody else on this planet. And we're never going to get to freedom if we don't stop the enabling patterns with people. I know this was a really big, intense one, and I kind of warned some people. I said, I'm making a video today, and it's going to be intense, and it's going to be a big topic, and it's something that people need to listen to. So if this has moved you and you want to share it, I welcome that, and, you know, definitely invite you to share with anybody that you can think of that this will be beneficial to. But I do want to do a short meditation here, and I'm going to grab my singing bowl, which I have sitting right here. Decided to go with this one. It's kind of my medium toned bowl, and I love this. So let's all just kind of take a moment, and we'll do something short here, you know, a few minutes of breathing into this, because I don't want us to hold this really tight, tense energy that we have, and I want to see what we can do to just kind of open this up a little bit and breathe through this intense topic that I've shared with you today. So go ahead, find your space, whether you want to sit or whether you want to, you know, however it is, get yourself comfortable. And with breath work, you know, I'm not overly concerned. If you have a particular breath technique that you like to use, then use that. I just, you know, all we want to do is kind of center in, and breath is such a powerful tool. What breath does is it encodes, it literally is bringing us into observation of the self, where we can gain an ability to see the whole picture, if you want to say that, an ability to see the different aspects of something. So let's go ahead and just breathe in to start with. And just let your breathing kind of settle in, and just let it slow down. And let's just kind of come into self right now. And another deep breath. And another deep breath. And you should be able to start feeling your body relaxing, letting go of the outside influences a bit at this point. And I want you to bring into your mind right now the relationships that you have and to consider who might just pop into your mind where there is an enabling dynamic going on to it. And I want you to sit with that dynamic just a little bit. Tuning into who that person is and where this enabling is happening. And it may be somebody that you're observing and not directly enabling, or it may be somebody that you are enabling or are being enabled by. And now I want you to think about, in this dynamic, what this person is really needing. What's the real gift or the real skill that they're needing to have instead of these outside influences? How much stronger could they be with that skill? And I want you, with great love, to see this person being told no in the situations that they're being enabled. Not preventing them from the absolute basics or needs of food, shelter, water, that type of thing, but being told no for relying on the outside resources, because it's the outside resources that are enabling us. And instead, giving them a hug and telling them that they will find a way. They will find a way from within. Encourage them to get creative with what they already have to work with. Encourage them to consider taking a different direction or a different approach. And it seemed like things kind of cut out, so come back around, breathe yourself back into this reality, and see that person succeeding, going their way with full success. I know this has been an intense topic this week, but run with it, go with it, and approach the relationships you have. And approach the relationships that you have with great love.